Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, with an old school co-host today, Madi. How you doing, Madi?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Life is great. So many things we've been able to achieve and accomplish, which we're going to get a chance to talk about a little later on in the show. I'm just excited about life, about living, some of the challenges I've been taking on, and to be able to hear your voice and to be able to work with such brilliant people at the Soul Focus Group and people who are connected to us from around the world.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's awesome. I was thinking, last night and this morning about how, I love our new format, and also I've always really enjoyed just rapping with you on these podcasts too. So I was really looking forward to this morning, and I'm excited for us to have this conversation. And I'm with you. I'm excited too. We'll share later, my D, but we have some really exciting things to announce to folks, which we'll talk about later on. That's happening with Soul Focus Group. So you're gonna have to wait to the outro to be able to find that out. That's what you call a tease. That's what you call a tease in the radio business.
Yes.
So, or podcasting business, I guess. So, Madi, thank you for joining us today. Just because of everybody's schedule, we haven't been able to get the whole crew together. People have been taking time off and taking vacations and stuff, and we'll get Martina and Cindy back this coming week. But I just really wanted to talk to you today about what you thought about this last year and our new format, and then we'll spend a little time talking about next year. So we don't need to jump in right now, but I just want to let our listeners know that's what the subject is today. And I know I'm excited to talk about it. So right after this break, we'll come back and talk about it. What do you think about that, Madi?
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to a lot of exciting energy. There is nothing more powerful than communication, because we all have to do it, and we're all doing it on some level all the time. When we are talking to ourselves or thinking, that's just another word for talking to ourselves, which means that we are doing what? Communicating with ourselves. When we are verbally speaking to other people, our body, or when our body language is demonstrating communication is so important, because the world runs off of communication. So when you power up your communication, you essentially power up your life. At the Soul Focus Group, we invite everybody that comes to really delve into powering up their communication, transforming the way they listen, transforming the way they speak, transforming the way they connect to people, because that is where our power is. Power up your communication, people. We all need it.
All right, my D, well, we had you on as a guest a few times this year. And prior to, our
last year.
Yeah, I meant last year. Yeah. The year in review, right? I know I'm forgetting. It's past January already. But, you and I were really the prominent voices prior to 2022. And in 2022, we made a shift, and we brought in Cindy and we brought in Martina.
Great move.
And we brought in some different guests. Yeah. Well, I really want to hear from you. Like, I know you said, on the air before, and you said it's a great move. And so I really want to hear from you. Like, what are your thoughts about that move, and what made it a great move?
I'm super excited about the opportunity to have women's voices on the podcast, because, we have talked about this and so often about how it's so important that we take lead from women in a lot of ways about a lot of things. And there's no better way to do that than to have their voices leading the way on the podcast, because there's so much for us to learn. There's so much we have not known, because we haven't had really frank conversations with women enough on a regular basis to really get what women think and why they think the way they think, and what their experiences have been in a male-dominated society. So having them at the helm has been a blessing, not in disguise, but a calculated blessing that Soul Focus really needed to bring balance to the airwaves.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think, that's kind of one of the costs of patriarchy, even to us as men, is is having lost the value of women's voices and the power. I think a lot about the fact that one of the reasons why we have the patriarchy is because we as men oftentimes are, let's say, scared, but at minimum, I would say we don't understand the power of women, and we often underestimate the power of women. And I think that it's been incredible for me to watch Martina and Cindy, because while they're like less experienced in the podcasting part of it, they have, their questions and their thought processes have taken us places that I know I didn't go. And I would say probably you and I, when it was just the two of us, like we went some awesome places. There's a lot of places we didn't go that Martina and Cindy have taken us.
Yeah, I think, just naturally, the intelligence of women is, to me, from what I've experienced throughout my life, because I was raised by women, raised by grandparents, grandmothers, great grandmothers, and great great grandmothers. And their
Mm-hmm.
wisdom is different
Mm-hmm.
because they've been in a different position in this society. And so they see things that we don't necessarily see. And, one of the things that I've struggled with throughout my life as a man, being in a man's world, defined by men, a society shaped and laws governed by men, you begin to think a certain kind of way. And you think that's the only way to think about things. That's the only way to approach things, like a mechanic only using one tool in the toolbox and trying to fix every car that comes into his shop with that one tool. For
Right.
men, we have been in a lot of ways like that. And a lot of the problems that you see in society are the result of having that one view, that one male view. Now, I'm not trying to oversimplify the fact that, there are some men who are complicated or nuanced, but we, for the most part, have not really entertained the intelligence of women to the degree in which we say, okay, let's use this view, this perspective, as a means to solving some of the problems in society. We haven't really done that, you know. So I'm proud
Yes.
of this Soul Focus Group for us opening up to that, and will be, even more catalyst for it in 2023.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. And I think the energy, the influence, the influence of vulnerability. I think that's one of the things that's really impressed me most from like listening back to the episodes from this past year is the vulnerability of both Cindy and Martina in terms of being able to like center and focus what's going on for themselves, and also just the level of inquiry too. And we've had some amazing guests. We've had all kinds of folks come on, professionals. I love that Martina has brought in the whole medical angle. And, we've had Dr. Stephanie Jupiter on, and we've had Dr. Nilo on. We've had, Cindy Carnegie on to really talk about that angle. We've had Megan Wilbur come on as a nurse practitioner and, they're just incredible conversations. For me, a lot of it I've just listened to more in the engineer role, just because being able to like learn about a world that I only know as a consumer, but not as a practitioner. So just bringing those angles in has been incredible for me as well this year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's good to hear the voices of people that you wouldn't otherwise hear. You're like, because they're everyday people, like the
Right.
people that you mentioned, who are doing great work in the world. And what it used to be is that, if you in order to know who they were, you'd have to see them on CNN, you have to see them on Fox News, you have to see them on some major broadcast. But now, because there's so
Right.
many media outlets, you get the opportunity to see the people, to see the leaders on the ground who are actually doing the work, and in a lot of ways not getting recognition and not being recognized, that are really making impacts. And when we could hear their voices, it should remind everybody that you have a voice and you have the power to have an impact as well. So bringing a vast majority or a variety of people on the show is designed to show you that leadership comes in different forms.
Mm.
And there are a lot of leaders out there that who need to be recognized and appreciated for their contributions. And the Soul Focus Group, that's one of the things that we're going to be doing in 2023 as we go into this year. We're going to go into it with a focus on leadership.
Right. And redefining leadership, right?
Yes.
Like leadership's not just positional.
No.
Which is this huge piece for me. Like having been a part of institutions, for almost 25 years, working for large nonprofit and a large city government, and always having leadership teams defined as positional leadership. And that's not how we're looking at it. Right. We'll get into that. We'll get in a little bit more, but I just want you to clarify when we say leadership, we're not talking about just people at the top of organizations, including ourselves. We're talking about leadership coming from everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the truth of leadership. And the truth of leadership is that, we're really all born to be leaders of our lives. And, that's the greatest leadership task of them all, because if you're not leading your life in a way that is to be celebrated, then it kind of disqualifies you to lead other people. We have a lot of leaders who their lives are in toxic disarray. And for some reason, they believe that they can loan clarity to other people, when the reality is if you don't have clarity in your own life, it's kind of hard for you to go model clarity. So a lot of leaders that we see on the scenes have been performative. They've been performing leadership versus being a leader. And there's a huge distinction. So we have a lot of performative leaders, and we have leaders. And if you're a leader, then you've also incurred injuries. You've been hit by blows, because what happens to leaders go out front. They take licks for other people. They accept responsibility for things that other people are not accepting responsibility for. So there's side effects of being a leader. And what we know is that leaders need to periodically heal from their leadership. And we want to be able to provide the healing process for leaders, because we believe, leaders need to pull up into the gas station and fill up their tanks. And fill up their tanks in a way emotionally and psychologically, so that they can be supercharged and recover from maybe cynicism, recover from feeling burned out, recover from feeling like they're not recognized, they're not seen, they're not heard, and they're making all these contributions. We want leaders to be able to show back up on the scene in a way that's powerful and full of energy, because we had a very pivotal time in the history of this country, in the history of the world, history of the universe, where all of us have to step up to another level of leadership that we are yet to see, to be honest with you. Because the way I look at it is like, I want you to imagine that you woke up this morning and you are no longer questioning who you are. You know who you are totally. And you know that everything that comes from you is like on point, and you trust it. So the way you communicate with people, the way you talk to people, you take yourself serious. You take what you say as being substantial. How different might your day be if you took what you say substantially? If you really worked with, what is being revealed in you in a way where you believe in it wholeheartedly. See, most of us, even as leaders, have been operating from a place of being unsure of ourselves, trying to get validation, which is indications of us needing to heal mentally from some of the side effects of leadership.
Yeah, I love that, Madi. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's an energy that has to be brought into this world that hasn't been. One of the things I want to say about last year, as you were talking about leadership, I talked about Martina, who's Martina's an MD, and all the people we had that came in from the medical side. But I want to make sure I don't lose the leadership that comes from being a mom too.
Oh, wow.
And that's what Cindy brought us, right?
Right.
I mean, Martina too, but Cindy really brought that intense energy. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to give that short shift. You know what I mean? Like I want to make sure that Cindy brought some incredible perspective in her segments and episodes where she talked about what it means to be a mom, which is another powerful way of a powerful type of leader, right?
Yeah, moms are the leaders, and they're probably the leaders that are least recognized, right? Because we live in
Hmm.
a society where, we put more value in what happens on the job, not realizing that, the reason why there are people on the job is because somebody raised them, somebody
That's right.
nurtured them, somebody developed them. And we have as a country, we've moved away from developing people. So the language we use does not highlight the value of the mothers being leaders. Fathers are leaders too, but mothers are also leaders. And in that leadership, it's like the old saying goes, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Well,
Mm,
mothers are rocking the cradle. They're putting their fingerprint on the world, but they're not being acknowledged for their fingerprint being put on children, right? So when
right.
you identify somebody as a leader or a group as a leader, you're not just raising them up with accolades and appreciation, but you're also holding them accountable, and you're letting them know that we're watching your leadership. We're looking for direction from you, not just through
Hmm.
how you raise your children, but how your children show up in the world is your signature, right? And
Hmm.
mothers can't
Right.
get away from that. We want to make a better world, then we got to raise children differently.
That's exactly right. Exactly. And parenting, mothering and parenting is it's huge. And I love the perspective that Cindy brought. One of my favorite episodes this year was when Cindy and Kelly were on together, and they shared vulnerably some of the issues and also the positives that that come from parenting, from their parenting, and talking about emotional vulnerability and what that looks like. And that to me, again, I'm just really sitting in what we call like expert, like bringing in experts, and we're going to do that even more in 2023, which we're going to talk about. And we also have to really acknowledge that the life experience of those around us, especially parents and people that are committed to being emotionally vulnerable with their children and their colleagues in any area of any area of their lives, is so powerful. And that was actually one of my favorite pieces from this past year.
Right. Like I said, I think, we have to broaden our view of what a leader is and who are leaders, and energize them, acknowledge them, appreciate them, and call them into the fold, into the fold, so to speak, of
Yeah.
leaders, and getting them to see that we appreciate what they're contributing, and we want to get more effective, because that's one of the things about being a leader that you have to do on a daily basis. Every morning when you wake up as a leader, you have to ask yourself, how can I be more effective?
Hmm.
And if that's not one of your, North Stars, then perhaps you still haven't accepted the fact that you're a leader, or you still in denial about being a leader.
Right.
But every morning you wake up, even as a mother, how can I be more effective in raising my kids? And most mothers are asking themselves that question without saying it that way. They're looking to improve their children, looking to, support their kids in the ways that are getting better and better. So, but we got to ask ourselves that, all of us, how can we become more effective leaders? Because we can't keep going at the same pace. We can't keep going at the same rate we're going, because what we have been producing, if we continue to keep on the same path that we're on, we're headed for destruction. So there has to be some shifts, which tells me that leadership for the most part hasn't been really asking that question: how can I be more effective?
Hmm.
That question has not been being answered, because take, for example, in the social justice community, we have not been nearly as effective as we can be, because we've been afraid to even entertain what being effective would really look like.
Hmm.
So we definitely want to challenge people to consider, what would being effective as a social justice leader really be,
Hmm.
if you get rid of the idea of us just trying to change other people. Because for the most part, that's what we've measured our effectiveness is: our ability to aggravate other people, to agitate people, to make other people feel uncomfortable, to force other people to see that they have to change. But what about us? What do we really have to do to be more effective as leaders? What would make us feel fulfilled and accomplished as leaders if we were able to get done, that we're not getting done?
I love that. I love that. I'm going to use that as a segue for us to take a quick break and then come back in and talk about next year. And I will say that one of the things that I'm thinking about right now, my D, that I feel very proud of is even without us having to have this conversation, that's so much of what last year was about. And that's so much of what the energy that Cindy and Martina brought is how can I and we be more effective at parenting in the medical field as human beings. And I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed being part of the podcast last year so much is without us ever having this conversation, that's exactly what we talked about almost every week. How can I be more effective through my emotional vulnerability, through healing from trauma? The whole series we did last year on men, being men, how can we be more effective in every area of our lives? So I feel like we did that and that it sets the stage for this next year.
Beautiful. So have you ever heard of a term called groundwater? Groundwater is another word we use at the Soul Focus Group that means subconscious programming. From the ages of 0 to 7, we are subconsciously programmed. So much information and choices and decisions are downloaded into our subconscious mind, and we begin to start living that life. And even though that life we're living is not the life we chose for ourselves, and it's not until we understand the impact of the groundwater, what the groundwater really is, that we begin to wake up to our own lives and begin to choose what we want for ourselves. At the Soul Focus Group, we bring you to that consciousness so that you can begin to choose the life you want to live for yourself.
All right, so my D, I really want to hear. I think I'm getting excited just what you talked about in terms of us sharing with our listeners and our Soul Focus family, far and wide, what this coming year is going to be like around leadership and being more effective and asking ourselves questions we've never asked ourselves before in the social justice movement and in all areas. And, I want you to expand on that a little bit more, get our folks excited for what's coming with Soul Focus Group this year, but also how you see that tying into our podcast this coming year as well.
I see 2003 being a year where we take leadership to another level.
2023. I don't know if I'm ready to go back 20 years, bro. 2023.
What did I say?
You said 2003.
Wow, 2023. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Yeah,
no worries.
Yeah, but in a way that the way we're living, if you look at the trajectory of our society, we're going backwards rather than forward. And we have to make a shift. That shift cannot happen and will not happen if leadership doesn't shift. So our theme for 2023 for me is changing the minds of leaders. That we are taking on the mission to change the minds of leaders. And of course, we can't change leaders' minds, but we can put out the influence and the inspiration and the motivation and the technology that will cause leaders to re-examine the mind that they're operating from, the way they're thinking from, their thinking positions. Because we need to change our thinking positions. When we say change the minds of leaders, what we're saying is shifting your thinking position and also taking on new perspectives. One of the things that we had talked about before, during this year, we had some situations where I was doing an interview one time and I asked the question, why should anyone listen to your perspective if you're not willing to listen to theirs? And the person, of course, had a loss of words because you don't deserve to be listened to if you don't listen to other people's perspectives. Now, as social justice leaders, we have been we've been afraid to entertain perspectives that are seemingly opposed to ours. Right? So we haven't been willing to listen to people. So if you don't agree with us, we don't listen to you, which has caused our leadership to be created a disadvantage for our leadership. Instead of us growing, we've been fighting to, it's like there's an old saying says, you either play to win or you play to keep from losing.
Hmm.
Social justice leadership has been playing to keep from losing. We have not been playing to win.
Hmm. Hmm.
Playing to win is not just about the idea of eradicating something that you don't want to have in society, but it's about creating a flourishing way to live and grow for everybody, not just the group that
Hmm.
you're with, but for everybody. That if
Hmm.
anybody comes along and starts applying the formulas, the techniques, the technology that you are using, they can grow too. They can enjoy the flourishing and the happiness that comes with applying what we are applying to our lives. So one of the things that we do in the Soul Focus Group, which is giving us the edge and really helped us to get to this vantage point, was we started listening to people that did not share the same view as us. People that
Hmm.
had opposing views to us, we started listening to them, listening with a desire to really see what we are missing.
Hmm.
And we found the things that we were missing by listening. And that has informed us why reason why we have to change the minds of leaders, because we all have been operating from a standpoint of fighting against each other, proving that we are right and the other person is wrong or the other group is wrong. And it is the reason why we are not making any progress. It's the reason why things are getting worse rather than getting better.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We talk all the time about how we put all of our energy into fighting instead of creating. And, so we're not creating what we want. So I agree with you 100%. We've been putting all of our energy into fighting, and we've been extremely ineffective at getting what we say that we want out of the world. So, and out of ourselves as well. Most of us have been miserable. I know, you and I and Dustin and everybody involved with Soul Focus Group, we talk about this all the time. We were on the forefront of the social justice movement, especially the movement to end racism, and we weren't getting what we wanted out of ourselves. But we had the expectation that we were going to get what we wanted out of the world. We couldn't even get what we wanted out of ourselves. So that effective leadership, it has to be us being able to really listen, not just externally, but really listen to ourselves too, and make sure we're effective at getting what we want from ourselves too, right?
Yeah, the average leader, whether they be corporate, nonprofit, community driven, lacks what I consider inner awareness.
Hmm.
Inner awareness.
Yeah, say more about that.
Inner awareness is this connection you have with yourself that really, see, like all of us, every human being has their own GPS system within themselves. Now, that GPS system does not work if you don't accurately represent what is happening in your reality. When I say in your reality, inside of you, no one else knows what's going on inside of you but you. That's the reason why I call it inner awareness. So everything is growing out of inner awareness. If I accurately represent my reality on the inside to the external world, what it does, it naturally positions me to take advantage of the moves that the universe is making in my favor. Now, what we have been
Mm-hmm.
taught as leaders who lack inner awareness, we misrepresent our inner realities all the time out of competition, out of comparing, out of, fighting with other people, trying to please other people. We alter the very thing that puts us in the right position to take advantage of the moves that the universe is making in our favor. So when you develop inner awareness as a leader, you learn how to navigate your life naturally. You learn how to move at the speed of inspiration.
Hmm.
Most leaders have lost the ability to move at the speed of inspiration. How many leaders have listening to right now, listening to our broadcast, feel a lack of inspiration?
Hmm.
It's been a while since you felt inspired about your work. You've been needing motivation, so you got to listen to people on a regular basis to motivate you, to get you to remember what your point of focus is. That happens when we lose inner awareness. Inner awareness is how we stay connected to our navigation system, which is the key to our leadership. Can't be a leader without navigation. If you have to follow everybody else, then that means you're not really a leader.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love that concept. I think that inspiration, I mean, that's huge, right? Because it's like, this week I was, on a few different conversations where people were talking about, burnout and, what is the antidote to burnout? And, people using the terminology renewal. And somebody said, well, what do you mean by renewal? So they said, well, renewal is just keeping people excited, interested, and keeping them from burning out. And it's like, how do we do that? Especially if people are in like lower paying jobs. And, this was a conversation around social work folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, what I hear you saying is that in many ways, inspiration is the antidote to burnout. And that if you're in touch with your inspiration, if you're inspired, if you have that inner awareness and what inspires you, that's what's going to keep you motivated and keep you from burning out.
It's the fuel of leadership. Because it is in awareness. Well, it's inspiration that gives us clarity, right? So no leader is going to stay at the top of their game without clarity. You may have used courage to force yourself into a situation or confidence, but it's really clarity that sustains you as a leader. When you lose clarity, which is your relationship to inspiration, you stop being able to lead people and you start becoming a manager. And a manager is someone who just, who manages what has already been done. They're more convergent thinkers that just keep what already happened before happening again. That's mainly what you see out in the world. You see more managers than leaders. Leaders are different from a manager. Leaders are trailblazers. They see things that other people don't see. And as a result, they suffer from injuries that the average person doesn't even understand. So the Soul Focus Group, we want to create a support system for leaders to heal from the side effects of leadership. Because there are side effects coming. Think about all the sacrifices that we've made. We've made sacrifices that we didn't have to make, but we didn't know we didn't have to make them because there was no one who had the inner awareness to really hip us to the reality that we didn't have to make those sacrifices to be the leader. But we still have to look at some of the ridicule, the rejection that we've experienced, some of the lack of acknowledgement and appreciation. All those things have side effects that wear down on us. And we get to a point to where a leader starts to, burn out, starts to become cynical. One of the biggest indicators that leadership has burned out is quiet quitting, the phenomenon of quiet quitting.
Right.
Quiet quitting is a reflection of leadership, not of the general population.
Right.
Says leadership has not been inspiring the people that take orders from them, that take direction from them. If there were, people wouldn't be quiet quitting. People are quiet quitting because they want their lives back, because of the model of leadership that we've set up in the world has been more about taking from people rather than giving to people, rather than acknowledging what they're contributing and giving to the process. We have not been doing it. It's not been a built-in model of leadership that we've been following thus far.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. So we're letting folks know this is our first podcast of 2023, and we're letting folks know that this is direction, and it's not a deviation from what we've been doing, right, Mahdi? This is just a consolidation and a focus, like putting a finer tip on the focus of what we've been doing and making sure that everything we're doing is, this year, that people are going to understand that it's all about all of us, not just people in positional leadership, but it's about all of us, really stepping into our full leadership potential.
Yeah, it's definitely not a deviation from what we've been doing, but it's a clarification on who needs it the most, to be honest with you, because what you're seeing out in the world among people is a direct reflection of leadership. The body is always a reflection of the head. And if you don't transform the way the head thinks, then the body is destined to suffer from the diseases that are in the head.
Right. No, most definitely. So I want to ask you, as our CEO, how do you see us using the podcast this year? What would you like to see in this upcoming year that we use the podcast to really help get this message across, along with other messages too? Like you say, it's not deviating from everything we've been talking about to this point. And how do you see us, really bringing this message strong through our podcast?
Well, I see the podcast, creating a synergy around conversations that are always being brought back to what leaders are doing and why leaders are doing what they're doing, to support leaders and understanding that, there are a lot of leaders out there who need to heal. And until they heal, then there can't be a new direction that they will be able to give to the people that's following them. So there has to be,
Mm-hmm.
as people say, a renewal of mind, right? When we say healing, renewing and recovering the ability to move at the speed of inspiration, or as Stephen Covey would say, move at the speed of trust, which the two come hand in hand. You can't move at the speed of inspiration unless you trust yourself. Well, then the question you have to ask yourself is, why so many leaders don't trust themselves? And how do we know that? Because the body is reflecting a lack of trust. When the people are reflecting back to stuff like quiet quitting, which is doing just enough, that means they're not being inspired by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
All you have is micromanagers out there who are not really giving vision. And if you don't have vision, that means you don't have clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely need to restore clarity.
I like that. I like that. So I can definitely see how that can be a theme, and we can weave in everything we've already been talking about and bringing in guests. One of the things, Madi, that we're going to do is, we're going to highlight people in our Soul Focus Group family like we always do. And we're also going to work to bring in more guests from other podcasts and other areas that relate directly to everything that we're talking about. So it's exciting. Like, it's exciting to be able to, I love the idea of using the podcast to bring more clarity. I love that. I love the feeling of the word clarity and the energy that the word clarity brings, and how we can use this podcast platform to continue to bring more clarity to our development as leaders, where we are. Yeah. Anything else? What else do you think? What else do you see us bringing clarity to in this coming year?
Well, when we talk about bringing clarity to leadership, you're talking about a lot. You're talking about different
Mm-hmm.
aspects of leadership, because so much of what we do, like when we talk about sending the right signal, who is sending the
Mm-hmm.
right signal? Who's responsible for sending the right signal? Leadership,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the leaderships in organizations, the leaderships in companies, so healing, who is responsible for the heal? See, we're going to the source of who is really controlling the flow of social change. Leaders
Mm-hmm.
control the flow of social change, and until they change, then guess what happens? Because think about all the years we've been saying we are working to transform systems and institutions, and we realized
Mm-hmm.
that we weren't talking about buildings and computers, that we were talking about people, right? But
Right.
most specifically, we're talking about the leadership in these institutions and systems who have not changed, who have not changed their thinking, who have not recaptured. So what we want to do is help leaders recapture their beautiful thinking mind, the spirit of Eunoia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Operate from a beautiful thinking mind and see how, and then reevaluate their leadership based upon that once they've recaptured or recovered their beautiful way of thinking. Because every leader, I
Mm-hmm.
think, when they first start, has a beautiful way of thinking, a beautiful way of seeing the world. And,
Mm-hmm.
through time, that gets grind down, that we stop believing what's possible. We become cynical, as I said before. We burn out. We see problems before we see solutions. And that kind of, when a leader is in that position, we do more harm than good.
Right. Yeah, I really like that. I really like what you're saying. One of the things that you're making me think about is, how, like, you've never really worked, you haven't worked like years and years inside of systems like I did. And, you've been, I mean, that's one of the blessings of your life, I think, my D, is you've been able to, coach and train. And, for me, I spent 23 years inside of institutions and systems. And one of the things that you just made me think about, which is amazing, is when you leave somewhere, when you leave working at a big institution, you pretty much look beat down, just physically, right?
Mm.
You feel beat down, you're burned out, all that stuff. Then when you get to the next job, like, you can physically see the change in people. Because when you get there, you have all that inspiration and all that clarity and all that beautiful thinking about what you want to do in this new job, right? And so it's like, when you go back and visit your old job, everybody's like, "Oh my God, you look so good. Like, you look renewed and refreshed," right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, "Oh my God, you look great." Like, and and the person can't say it to them because they're still there and they're like looking beat down and feeling beat down. But then fast forward 5 years, and then that person who looked so good when they left the one job and got to the next one, they don't look the same anymore, right?
Because
And it's what it is, right?
those patterns they pick back up on those patterns that they had the last job. See, they start off fresh and
Yeah.
they, start off with this fresh approach. And then eventually the same shit that they ran into the last company, they ran into with this company or with this organization. It's the
Right.
reason why, why when presidents are inaugurated, you see how they look so fresh when
Oh my
when
gosh.
they're first inaugurated. And then within 2 or
Yes.
3 years, they got gray hairs coming out, growing everywhere because
Yes.
they have to uphold every effed up thing that has been done before them.
That's
They
right.
find out that they got to uphold all of that. And so lots of times that's one of the biggest side effects of leadership is that leaders by nature want to break new ground. But
Right.
then we find ourselves in situations where we have to agree to, not have to, but we end up agreeing to keeping the ground as it is, even though it's not healthy, even though it's toxic. That's what
Right.
silently kills leaders. It kills the spirit of leaders. So what we're saying is that we got to be radical about this. Leaders have to change their mind. We can't continue to do this because the world that we're leaving for our children is not. It's not going to be a livable world. At the
Mm.
pace that we're going at, with the lack of direction, lack of leadership you see out in the world, it's going to be total chaos. I remember my oldest daughter when she was in high school.
Hmm.
I was a very active parent in her education. So I would always meet her teachers from ninth grade to the 12th grade. And there was a
Right.
substantial difference from ninth grade to 12th grade. When I met the teachers, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, they were beat down. They were pessimistic. Their attitudes were like they were, kind of drained, just trying to get through the day. When I met the 12th grade teachers, they were so excited and full of energy and looking forward to the year. And I was like, wait a minute, hold up. I
Mm.
asked like three of them. I said, I said, am I just imagining this? That you all look like y'all are excited about teaching. You know what they said?
Mm.
Because at the 12th grade, they've taken all the tests that they are mandatory to take. And now we get a chance to teach kids something actually.
Mm.
We get a chance
Wow.
to actually teach, which is what we had a passion to do from the very beginning. Their energy was completely different. So the teachers prior to that are not teaching. They're not doing what they're passionate about. And we've created a system that we know don't work and we keep duplicating it because leaders are lacking the clarity it requires to create a vision that actually has us going to a place that we haven't gone to yet.
Mm.
The education system, for example, has not changed. It is still
Right.
operating on the same basic model, even though we are not developing people as we should at the level we should. We continue to keep the state of course. So you can't call people who are continuing to stay the course when the course is broke leaders. You can't call them leaders. They're managers.
Mm.
We want to
Right.
work with leaders, not managers.
Right. Wow, that's powerful, my D. This has been a great conversation. As we wrap up, I'm thinking that one of the things I really hear you saying is that we continue to carry the weight of the people that came before us.
Yes.
So like that president carries the weight, the teacher carries the weight. And until we get to a place where we can really be in our zone of genius, in our beautiful mind, our eunoia, state of eunoia, until we do that, that's how we shed that weight. That's what
Yes.
I hear you saying.
Yes. It's
And
beautiful.
so, yeah. And we, and I think that can be a great focus for us, even on these podcasts this year is, anything we talk about, how are we shedding that weight of what we've been carrying into these situations that isn't even our own weight,
I
right?
know.
It's the way we've been carrying everybody else's weight, and we've gotta, release that and let that go so we can be in our creative genius again.
I think that's so brilliant, Martin, the way you summarize it, because the toxic groundwater is that weight. Like we keep carrying on decisions that were made and agreements that were made that we see are not in our best interest, and we keep being loyal to shit that don't work for us.
Right. Right.
One of the things about recovering, healing, and recovering eunoia, beautiful thinking mind, is that a beautiful thinking mind equals you being 100% on your own side.
Right.
That's what we want to help leaders recover. the feeling of how it feels to be 100% on your own side and to be able to make choices and agreements that work for the people that you represent,
Right.
that actually work, not just on paper, actually create results that are different from what we're seeing now.
Yeah, I feel that. I really do. I feel that. And I feel like that's, this is time that we do that, because you're right. Like, all of this strife, all this division we have in this country right now, it's everybody's trying to figure out, like, well, what should I hold on to and what should I let go of? And it's not, it's just super out of balance.
Yeah, I say let it all go.
So out of
Let all the
balance.
shit go.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Let
I
it
agree
all
with
go.
you. I agree with you,
You know,
because it's neither side. Like, I mean, I, not to get political, because I could, and I'm not taking a political stance, but I have, for some reason, I've been kind of fascinated with this whole speaker process, Speaker of the House, and you know how they had to get to 15 votes, right, to get to the speaker, and it was the most in 164 years. And I'm not saying that the Democrats wouldn't do that too, so I'm not taking a stand, Republican versus Democrat. And it just made me see how incredibly dysfunctional, we're so dysfunctional right now. And these are the people that we are asking to lead us. And the dysfunction is just intense. And I agree with you. It's the two-party system. It's all of it. I'm not advocating one over the other. I felt like we've got to let go of this old way of doing things, because it's not effective. And it's not about what it's supposed to be about anymore. And that's
right.
I just came away thinking that so strongly.
It's like to a couple that married couple who divorced. So they divorce and then they gripe about, having to divorce, and then they share that griping with the kids, right? And both of them are petitioning, campaigning with the kids to get the kids to be on their side.
Right.
And so what they're doing is asking the kid to take up the mantle of their grievances with the parent, right? So the kid doesn't even get a chance to just be with their mother or just be with their father. They have been so impacted by the toxic groundwater of either of the parents that they struggle to see their parents clear enough to be able to enjoy them.
Right. Oh man.
And that is what we have been experiencing. So from one generation after the next, we want them to carry on the banner of all the fucked up shit that we've seen happen in this world. And we need to let it go and create from the beautiful things that we like. There are a lot of beautiful things that have happened in our world. A lot of things to celebrate. And we can build from that. But why do we have to continue the crap? Why we have to continue it? Why are we still making agreements that continues the crap?
Man, those are powerful, powerful questions. We got to wrap up, my D. This is amazing, though. I want to keep this conversation going, but those last couple of things you said were so powerful. We'll figure out how to keep that ongoing in our podcast moving forward, because that's just the energy of what you just said is like, yeah, we've got to let go of all of it.
We got to change the minds of leaders.
Yeah, and step into our own leadership.
Because that automatically happens when you have the guts to say we're going to change the minds of leaders. That means that you are now holding yourself to a higher level of accountability, high level of performance. Right. Your standard has to go up the minute you start calling leaders out. Right.
100%. And calling in too, right? Because we're good at calling out, but it's like calling in and being in process with leaders.
Thank you for that, because we're not. Actually, when I say call in, we want to help empower leaders to heal and recover. That requires calling in. That's why we call it in awareness. We want to call them to in awareness, which is calling them in. We want to love them.
Right.
We want to support them. Right. We want them to know that they are not alone, that we are leaders too, and we know the pain that comes along with leading. We know the sacrifice, and we know what happens to most leaders. Most leaders are casualties of war.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. we gotta wrap, man. This is amazing though. But yeah, and just thinking about that calling out groundwater and just how deep it is in us. And I appreciate you clarifying that, because we got yeah. We got skin in the game, and it's when we call people out, we act like we don't have skin in the game. We just stand from the sidelines and tell you how to play, but we're not willing to get on the field. And so we want to be clear at Soul Focus Group. We're on the field. We're on the field to play. Man, thank you for this. This is like always, like our conversations always go places I wasn't expecting them to go. So
welcome.
This has been beautiful, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, Martin. Let's make this year about changing the minds of leaders, because God knows our minds need to change. When you come to the Soul Focus Group, you come to an acknowledgement that there has been injuries done to us from all these different forms of oppression. Injuries that have impacted our subconscious mind, our heart, our spirit, our very soul. So at the Soul Focus Group, we recognize that and we focus on healing. Healing, the return or the recovery of our connections to our healthy self, our beautiful thinking mind. We want you to come join us in a movement of healing all around the world to restore us back to our rightful state. At the Soul Focus Group, we heal.
Well, my D, that was awesome, man. Being able to sit down with you as the CEO and have this conversation about not just the podcast, but, just like, your thoughts about last year and where we're going this year. That was a wonderful conversation, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome, Martin. I appreciate being invited. And not to miss, we want to think like SDOT out of Seattle and company, the organizations out of Colorado, out of what is Portland, right?
Portland, Gobi, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so many other organizations that we work with throughout the country, just for supporting us and seeing the genius in our creativeness and what we're doing at Soul Focus. Thank you so much for all the support from people from around the world, through emails, through texts, through communications. We really thank you for your support.
Absolutely. I'm going to add Action in Youngstown, Ridall in Cleveland, because those are my home spots, and organizations we worked with in LA. Yeah, just so much. This year was such a great year, and also working with so many different individuals and all the different formats we had around whiteness and just all the different things we did, and how it's just laying the foundation for 2023, which is going to be an incredible year, and we're going to keep growing and expanding. Really moving forward, and just I'm so excited about this year. And my D, one of the things I'm really excited, because I really, really want our folks. I've been saying this for about 8 or 9 months. We have our new website, my D.
Yes. Oh, wow. Our new website is out and running, and you have to check it out. Please check out our new website. And, there's much more to come. We just super excited. We want to just tear the package wide open on everything we're doing. That's why we thought that what a better focus than changing the mind of leaders, because in changing the mind of leaders, we change the minds of the world.
That's right. Absolutely. 100%. So please, everybody, like I said, I've been teasing this for way longer than I thought I was going to tease it for. But please go to soulfocusgroup.com. Our brand new website is up. It's beautiful. It's user friendly. It just has a whole different vibe and energy. And it's going to highlight everything that we've been doing, and it's going to highlight everything we're going to do in the future. So please come check it out. We're so happy that you all have made the choice to be a part of our family, to be on this journey with us. We're so thankful for you. We love each and every one of you, right, my D?
Yes,
every single person that's listening right now. We love you. Please share what we do. Share all the podcast platforms that we're on. Share our new website. Help us to keep growing and reaching people as we enter into this exciting new 2023. And as always, we want to ask you to stay safe, stay well, and most of all, please stay soul focused.